Hi, my name is Peter, and this is an introduction to Mythic Space. Mythic Space is a pen and paper tabletop role playing game that is a love letter to action sci fi media like Halo, Mass Effect, Cowboy Bebop, Guardians of the Galaxy, Battlestar Galactica, The Expanse, all of your early 2000s sci fi classics. The system is an evolution of the Forged in the Dark system, but because we're emulating first person shooters and action movies and TV shows, the game features a robust tactical combat system as well that plays kind of like a merger of XCOM, Enemy Unknown, and 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons to create some really interesting combat puzzles. So I've put together a short little scenario here in Roll20 that is going to highlight both halves of the system, just so you can get an idea of how the game plays. So the first thing you do in Mythic Space, before the group even makes their characters, is they all sit down and they decide what ship they're going to be on and what sort of their role in the ship is. So let's meet the crew of the Dauntless. Now, the Dauntless is a Peregrine class ship, which means that their special ability is that they're exceptionally fast. Their sublight drive is 5 times faster than anything outside of a dedicated military interceptor. The captain is Seth Ortega. He is your standard issue brown haired video game protagonist. And he is a mercenary captain out here in the Verge, sort of like a Malcolm Reynolds or a Han Solo type. His first officer is Torfi. Torfi is an Irumai. The Irumai are an androgynous monogendered plant-like species that have a rigid caste system. Now, Torfi is kind of like a rebel against that system. They chafe under their societal restrictiveness, which is why they're out here in the Verge tooling around with a scoundrel like Seth. And finally, we have Astrid Fern. Astrid is a robot. She was born human, but she had her mind uploaded to an experimental synthetic body that has strange mystical powers. She can teleport, she can set things on fire with her mind, but she doesn't know what happened to her original body or why she was put into this body. She only knows that she woke up locked in a hidden compartment when Seth and Torfi stole the ship. So they're out here now. They're a little found family, tooling around the galaxy like all the best sci fi crews. And today, they have been sent to recover a package from a downed courier ship in pirate territory. Because they're in pirate territory, lo and behold, when they arrive, they find that the ship is being picked over by a bunch of pirates. So you've got sort of your classic RPG scenario. You've got a bunch of rough bad guy types inhabiting a site that you want to examine, and you're not sure if you're going to fight them or not, or what your approach is going to be. So, to handle this situation, first we're going to look at the narrative half of the game. We're going to use a couple of challenge trackers to resolve this. Challenge trackers are kind of like clocks from Blades in the Dark. They're just a little bit longer, and we'll get into why that is in just a second. But the idea is that they need to fill this peaceful resolution clock before the violence ensues tracker fills. So the players talk amongst themselves, and they decide their best approach is going to be to try to lie to these pirates and convince them that they are part of the same gang to try to convince them to get a look at the ship and look for this package to see if they can sneak off with it. So Seth uh, is going to make the roll to lie to these guys. Um, Now, whenever you do something in Mythic Space and you make a roll, you're making an action roll. And what that is you roll a d20 and add one of your four attributes. The attributes are physique, which represents your physical strength, power, and toughness. Reflex, which is your dexterity, your perception shooting skills. Your discipline, which is your mental power. It's going to be your memory, your willpower, your resolve, and wits, which is your mental agility. It's going to represent your lateral thinking skills, your quick-wittedness, things like that. Lying to people is generally done using wits. So what Seth is going to do is he is going to roll a d20 and add 3 since his wits is 3. Okay, so 3 plus 3 is 6. Now, normally this would fail because when you are looking for an action roll, a 10 or better is a partial success and a 20 or better is a full success. But in this case, Seth has 2 experiences. Experiences are kind of like backgrounds from 13th Age. You get 2 of them at character creation. They're completely freeform. You get to dictate whatever experiences your character had before the game started. And when you make a roll that is related to one of your experiences, you get to reduce those difficulties by 5. So you only need a 5 or better for a partial success, or a 15 or better for a full success. And because Seth has experience with pirates in the past, the GM agrees that he gets to leverage his stole from the Red Scarf Pirate Gang experience and reduce the difficulty to 5. So he gets a partial success. Now, when you receive a partial success, you get a chance to fill a number of ticks on the challenge tracker. The GM in this case, the sort of standard is a D6. One of the other things you can use your experiences for is you can increase the die type. You can either reduce the difficulty or increase your effectiveness when you leverage an experience. But in this case, Seth decided he needed it in order to reduce the difficulty. So he's only going to roll a d6 to determine how many ticks he fills. 4. So we will fill in 4 ticks on this guy. But the GM also rolls a consequence die because this was only a partial success. Which is going to be a 5. So it's already not looking good. It is almost like the GM decided to weight this scenario in favor of that would have a fight break out. Now, Seth has 2 aspects. He's captain, which means that he is effective at leading his crew and good at buffing his friends, but he's also a scoundrel. And scoundrels are good at lying to people. In fact, their first ability is called Trust Me, which gives him an empowered token once per scene when he lies to someone. Now, tokens, there are a number of different types, and these serve as the meta currency in Mythic Space that let you adapt your die rolls and sort of influence probability. So Seth has an option now because he got an empowered token from lying to these guys. He has the option to spend that token to roll another d6 and fill that many slots, or he can hold on to it. Spending an empowered token basically lets you achieve like a critical result without actually rolling a full success. Or if you did roll a full success, you increase the success even further. Now, there are other tokens, like protection tokens, that would have let him have the result of this consequence die, or accuracy tokens that would have let him re-roll his d20 roll. There are also negative versions of all those tokens, which basically make the results worse for him, that the GM can hand out potentially as consequences. But in this case, Seth tries to convince these pirates, but they don't seem to be buying it. So Torfi, in their infinite wisdom, looks at the situation and decides that they don't think they're going to be able to convince these pirates peacefully. So they're going to start a fight. They are going to go first. And that is how fights in Mythic Space break out. You know, you just say, I'm going to attack this guy. And that means you get to take the first turn. So let's get the battlefield set up. So in Mythic Space, the battlefield is divided up into zones, and you can see that I've drawn some zones here on the map already. Seth's sort of out. Let's put Seth in this zone. So zones are usually approximately 10 by 10 meter areas, but they don't have to be exact. As you can see, these aren't all the same size. And they just sort of serve to roughly define the battlefield. So it's a way to get tactical positioning without having to sit there and count every single square that you move. So Torfi is going to try to move up and shank this pirate right up here with their energy blade. Now, when you move in Mythic Space, you have two options. You can reposition, which lets you move anywhere in your zone without having to roll, or move to an adjacent zone without having to roll. Or you can try to sprint, which moves you two zones, but you need to make a physique roll to do so. So Torfi can move here because you can't move diagonally. So 1, 2, they're going to try to sprint here and try to sprint into cover. So they roll a d20, 13, and add their physique +4. So they have a 17. So that is a partial success. When you achieve a partial success on a sprint roll, you have two options. One, you can choose to move only one zone, but end your movement in a safe position, or you can still move two zones, but wind up in a compromised position. This means that you will be out of cover, or there's a hazard there that you didn't previously anticipate. Torfi is going to take the two zone move because they have a tactic called Athlete. So aspects give you your narrative abilities. Tactics give you your cool combat abilities. So Athlete, its first ability is called Run and Gun, and once per combat, it lets you take an additional move action for free. So Torfi is going to sprint again and try to get up to this pirate marauder right up here to shank them with their energy blade. So they're going to make a physique roll again. 6 + 4 is 10. That is enough for a partial success. So Torfi will be in a compromised position out here outside of cover, but they will be close enough to engage with this pirate marauder. So they are going to run up and try to stab this guy with their energy blade. Energy blades are a melee weapon, so they use physique as well. 14 plus 4 is 18. So Torfi is very close to a 20, which would be a full success. And in this situation, when you are close but not quite to where you want to be, you have the option to push yourself. And this is sort of where the central tension of Mythic Space's system comes in. Because when you push yourself, what you do is you can choose to roll a d4, a d6, or a d8. And you add that result to your roll. But you also add that much stress to your character. And when you hit 10 stress, your character has a mental break. Mental breaks are bad. When your character breaks, you lose something of yourself. You might lose your compassion, your mercy, your fear, your innocence. It doesn't necessarily have to be a negative change. You might lose your callousness or your prejudice, but it does have to be a meaningful change for your character. What you lose is up to a discussion between you and the GM, but it can create some really interesting character moments. But right now, Torfi is 2 off from being able to get a critical hit on this pirate. So they're going to choose a d4 to roll and add that much stress. 1, of course. Well, that's XCOM, baby. So Torfi still only gets a regular hit, but they add 1 stress to their total. And an energy blade does d8 damage. 8. So that's good. So the pirate loses all 5 of their shields and 3 armor. And so they are almost defeated. Now, on your turn, you can take a move action, a main action, and an auxiliary action. Torfi has taken 2 move actions because they used their run and gun tactic. They've used their main action to attack the pirate. And they don't really have anything to do with their auxiliary action. So they can use it to scan maybe one of these pirates to get an idea of their stats, but we're not going to worry about that. Half the time you don't have a use for your auxiliary action anyway. So Torfi is going to end their turn, which means that it is the GM's turn. And they get to pick whichever of these pirates they want to go next. It's just you choose one person on a side to go, and then one person on the other side goes, and then you go back and forth like that until everybody has acted, and then you go to the next round. So the GM decides that he is going to take this pirate's turn. So we look at the stats for this pirate. We've got a marauder. They've got good physique and good wits. They are ruthless, and they have space legs, which means they get to ignore difficult terrain from zero gravity and debris. And they use an SMG to attack. So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to use their auxiliary action to recharge their shields. So they get to set their shields back to 5. And they also gain a fortified token. Now, fortified tokens let you reduce the consequences of any roll or half the damage that you take when you spend it. So this guy gets his Marauder shields back. He is going to move. He's going to try to reposition back here over cover. Normally he would have to take something called a struggle action to climb over this little piece of wing right here, but because he's got space legs, he gets to ignore that, so he just runs and hops back behind this wing, and he's going to try to light up Torfi with his SMG. So he'll roll a d20. Plus 3 is an 18. That is a regular hit. Now, NPCs can't push themselves. This is one of the ways that players get an edge, and it sort of weights things in their favor slightly, uh, even if it lets them take on greater odds than they should be, because this is not an OSR game. It's not a gritty thing where you're supposed to avoid combat. You're supposed to be encouraged to get into fights and just, have poundy drums on in the background. Rock Anthem for Playing the World is playing, or Doom music while you go to town on these people. But at the same time, you want to feel that tension as this guy is about to light up Torfi pretty bad. He's going to roll a d6 for damage. 3. So Torfi loses 3 of their shields. They're down to 5. And they're currently exposed and in a precarious spot. So this pirate has moved. He's used an auxiliary action, and he has used his main action to shoot. So that is the end of his turn, which means that it's Seth's turn. Seth would not have a good angle to shoot at this pirate from here, so he is also going to try to sprint over to this little bit of cover right up here. 3. So, because Seth has a physique of 0, that is going to fail. So that means not only does he only move one zone, he is in a compromised position in that zone. The good thing about this is that he gains 1 XP. That is the only way to gain experience, is by failing rolls. And when you gain 10 XP for a particular attribute, you get to increase that attribute by 1. Which does mean attributes increase relatively slowly, but that sort of mitigates the classic Blades in the Dark problem, where after a few sessions and people have increased their attributes a bunch, then they basically can't fail anymore, and you lose a bit of that sort of controlled chaos feel to the game. Mythic Space sort of avoids that and maintains that controlled chaos for much longer, while still giving the players lots of cool abilities and stuff so that they still feel like they're advancing. But anyway, Seth is out here in this zone. His tactics are gunslinger and officer. Gunslinger lets you start with an accurate token and an empowered token. So Seth already has an accurate token at the start of combat. And he actually has 2 empowered tokens because he didn't spend the empowered token from earlier when he lied to the guy. So tokens have both combat and non-combat applications. So even if you choose not to use your special, if you choose not to use your tokens to influence the roll itself, you are still rewarded for acting within your character's archetype. So Seth, unfortunately, doesn't have a clear shot right now, so he is going to Overwatch, which means that he can take an attack at any point outside of his turn. But he also has a special ability called Tactical Advice, because he's a captain, and as an auxiliary action, he can give Torfi his choice of an accurate token, a dodge token, or a fleet token. Accurate tokens let you re-roll attacks or other action rolls. Dodge tokens give enemies disadvantage to attack you when they're spent, and fleet tokens let you move farther. So Torfi is going to take the dodge token because they are out here kind of exposed right now. We'll use the angel wings for the dodge token. And it is the GM's turn now. So they are going to activate these pirate deckhands up here, who are grunts. Grunts are minions. They have pretty terrible stats. They only have +1 to hit on their various physical skills and pretty terrible mental stats. And they also only have 1 armor. So if they take even any damage at all, they will go down. But you can activate up to 3 of them in 1 turn. And these guys, while individually are not particularly dangerous, if all of them, if there's a large group of them, things can get pretty hairy, and you need area attacks to sort of clear these guys out. So these guys are going to move into cover up here to get sort of clear shots on Torfi, and they are going to try to ventilate them. So they have a +1 to hit with their pistols. So we'll roll hit, miss, and miss. Yeah. So Torfi takes another D4 damage, 2. And you can see they're down to basically half strength after the enemy already has taken a couple of turns. They are basically 1 crit away from going down at this point. So Mythic Space. The other thing is that Torfi can actually spend this dodge token to force that attack that hit them to re-roll itself. So we'll do that. But they still hit. So the dodge token gets spent. Torfi takes 2 damage. And they are in a bad spot. But you can see that teamwork is sort of key here. It's very much a tactical puzzle where you have to try to decide the best position that you're going to be in to team up with your teammates to try to get the best effect. So it is now Astrid's turn. Their tactics are teleporter and pyrokinetic. So they can actually teleport up to 3 zones away by gaining 1 strain. Strain is like your magical ammo, essentially, and it's determined by your discipline. So Astrid has 4 strain to play with. Teleporting costs 1. They are going to teleport up here on top of the ship. And they are going to try to ignite this pirate marauder up here. So what ignite does is you roll discipline to hit. 9 plus 4 is 13. Normally he would be in cover. Being in cover means you need a 15 or better to hit, but this is a magical ability, so it ignores that. Now, what Ignite does is it deals D4 damage, 1, which is not much, but it inflicts as many burn tokens. So this guy, he is not going to spend his fortified token to reduce the damage to 0. So he'll take the 1 damage, and he will also gain 1 burn. I'll use this for burn. Now, burn acts like poison does in games like Slay the Spire. At the end of your turn, you take damage equal to the number of burn tokens you have, and then you reduce your burn by 1. So that was sort of an unfortunate roll with the D4, but it should be. It will wear this guy down eventually. And so the only character who hasn't acted yet. Well, actually, the party is in a kind of desperate situation at this point. So Astrid decides that they're going to push themselves. And this is the other way that players can sort of tip the scales in in their favor, because it lets them break the action economy. Once per turn, you can gain D4 stress. I don't know if that's a 1 or a 4. That is a 1. So Astrid gains 1 stress, and you get to take an extra action of any type that you want, including a main action. So Astrid is going to focus harder and really try to burn this guy and roll their ignite again. 14. So that will hit again. Another 1. All right. So that guy will be down to 3, but now he's got 2 burn tokens, and that actually represents +2 damage against him instead of just +1, because the burn is stacking up. He's going to take 2 at the end of his next turn, and then 1 at the end of the turn after that, assuming he's still standing. So the last character to go is this pirate up here. And he is going to try to climb up on top here to gain a clear shot on Astrid. But the GM rules that Seth can see him from here, and so Seth is going to spend his Overwatch to shoot this guy as he climbs up. So he's going to use his accurate token, so he gets to roll twice with advantage. 8, 1. 8 plus 3 is 11, so he will hit, and he's going to spend 1 of his empowered tokens as well. You can only spend 1 token of each type on a given roll. You can't spend 2 accurate tokens to reroll a die twice, for example, and you can only add damage by spending 1 empowered token at a time. But Seth gets to roll 2d8 damage against this guy for 4. These players are having a bad time with their rolls right now. Probably because people are watching. So Seth spends his Overwatch, he spends his accurate, and 1 of his empowered. So he's only got 1 empowered token left. And this pirate is going to try to light up Astrid over here. 15 plus 3 is 18, so Astrid takes a d6 damage. 5, jeez. All right. So it is the top of the round, and it is the player's turn. Any of them can act if they want to. Since Torfy is the one who is the most exposed, they are going to go next. So they are going to hop over here. And remember when I said that going across this little wing here would require the struggle action? So that means you need to make a physique roll to clear that obstacle, which Torfy does with flying covers. They roll a full success. So they hop over the wings, slide across it, and they are in perfect position to shank this pirate. So they're going to roll another d20. They will hit for 3 damage this time. So this pirate knows that they'll go down on their turn if they take this 3 damage. So they're going to spend their fortified token to reduce that to 1. And Torfy is going to push themselves again to just try to finish this guy off. So they gain 2 stress plus 1 stress from their previous push. So they're at 3 stress right now. But they're going to get to attack this pirate again. And this time they're going to crit. So they get to roll 2d8 damage for 10 and completely eliminate this guy. The GM goes next. They are going to have they're going to have the deckhands go next. These guys are going to try to shoot at Torfy, who is currently in cover from them. They were not in cover before because of their compromised position. So these guys need a 15 to hit them. And this guy is going to shoot at Astrid. And the GM rules that because Astrid is on top of the wrecked ship, they also have cover from this pirate. So we've got 2 attacks against Torfy. That'll miss. And that'll miss because they only have +1 to hit. And then this guy is going to shoot Astrid. And that guy will also miss. Astrid is going to go now since she's the one who is the most exposed. She is going to first try to ignite this pirate. So she'll roll her ignite. That is a crit. So she gets to roll 2d4 damage. 7. And this guy takes that much damage. He only had 6 left, so he's actually down. And because there aren't any more characters to act on this side, but Seth still gets to go, it's his turn. So he is going to try to struggle to climb up on top of this ship. So he's going to roll his d20 for a 12. So he can climb up, but he can't move any further. So he's basically climbed on top of the ship, but he is in sort of a precarious position, and that's it. So he can't move any further to try to get within range of these guys. But he is going to Overwatch again. And he is also going to use his tactical advice on Astrid this time, since Astrid is the one who's sort of out here right now. And Astrid is also going to take a dodge token. Now, because Seth took the last turn, the GM gets to take the next turn and have these 3 deckhands go again. This time they're going to get pretty aggro. They're going to wrap around this way and try to shoot Torfy. So they only need 10s to hit now since they are not in cover. So that will be a 15 and a 19 for a total of 3d4 damage. So first we get the regular hit for 1d4. So 4, oof. So -3 and -1. So Torfy is at 3. And then the crit for 7 damage. All right, so Torfi goes down. And this is where we get to showcase what happens when a player runs out of armor. So they took a total of 7 damage. That means their armor soaked 3 of it, but they have 4 remaining. So they're going to roll a d20 and add the remaining damage. So in this case, they're going to roll a d20 plus 4, which is a 16 plus 4 is 20. If you roll a 20 or higher on that damage roll, that is an insta-kill. So Torfi is just straight up killed by that shot. And you can see how brutal combat can actually be. And because we don't want characters to feel, that scared to get into combat, death is not permanent for player characters unless they want it to be. So what happens when a player character goes down is the medbay on their ship is highly advanced and can bring people back from the verge of death, short of anything of like pure disintegration or being completely incinerated. So Torfi just got shot up here by these pirates. So after this mission, they will be revived in the ship, but they will take a point of trauma, which means that they will break after 9 stress instead of 10 stress. When you die, you get to come back, but your stress limit is permanently reduced by 1. Now, if you want, you can. Torfi's player has the option to retire this character and build a new one. And you're actually rewarded for doing so with something called legacy points. And legacy points let you reshape the setting and also bring in a higher level character. So Torfi, Torfi's player decides that they are going to keep them around, but they're going to have them learn from this experience not to be quite so aggro and impatient in the future. Because they're the one who started this fight anyway, and they paid the price for it. Meanwhile, this pirate still has to go, and they take a shot at Astrid, who gets to use their dodge token to get this disadvantage, because normally that 9 would have hit. And unfortunately, even with disadvantage, Astrid still gets hit. So they take 3 damage as well. Their shields are down. Astrid is spooked by this. They have also used all 4 of their strain. They used 1 strain to teleport up here, and they've cast Ignite 3 times. They could continue to cast spells, but they would gain stress for every point of strain they would normally gain. So what Astrid is going to do is they are going to rally. And rally is how you rest and recharge. So Astrid rolls a d20 and adds their discipline. 16 plus 4 is 20. That means Astrid gets to choose 3 options from the following. They get to reload or recover their strain. They get to recharge their shields. They get to add a fortified token. Or they get to remove 1 negative token from them if they had one, but Astrid doesn't have any negative tokens. So Astrid is going to recharge their shields back to full. They are going to clear their strain, so they've reloaded essentially. And because they have 1 left over, they are going to gain a fortified token. So Astrid has taken their turn to recharge themselves. But rallying is a main action, so you can't also attack on your turn that you rally unless you push yourself. So the trick is to go as low as you can The whole system is built around pushing your luck. The optimal strategy is to go as low as you can and then rally and get everything back. But Astrid, which Astrid successfully did because they still haven't lost any armor, which can't be repaired by rallying, by the way. They've got all their strain back, and they've got a fortified token as well, so they're very unlikely to be in further danger. It is Seth's turn now. Seth is going to run up here and cap this pirate in the face. 18 plus 3 would be a crit, but as we discussed earlier, grunts only have 1 armor in the first place, so the extra damage that he would do is pointless, and there's no reason for him to spend his empowered token. But if he wanted to, he could have just straight up rolled 3d8 damage on that guy. And I have had players just like one-shot elite enemies if they get really good rolls and with enough setup. That can happen. And then it is these pirates' turn. They have seen 2 of their friends get capped. These characters are in an advantageous position over them, and they're just a couple of grunts, and at this point they are going to surrender. So that will end this little combat preview here. But that sort of gives you a taste of how the flow of combat works in Mythic Space. You know, you have characters kind of like chipping away at each other, and then every now and again you'll get these big damage spikes that keeps things really exciting. And it can be pretty brutal. You know, Torfi got taken out, but that was the result of their own actions. Seth could have given the dodge token to Torfi instead of Astrid, which may have been smarter, because these pirates could have looped around. That was sort of playing a little bit suboptimally because, you know, not every group plays tactically optimally. At the end of this mission, the crew will go back and they'll go into downtime. They can de-stress, clear their stress that they've had. They'll get paid. They can get credits, which they can use to buy more upgrades for their tactics or their aspects, or train to increase their attributes. And that is a just brief taste of the system. The game will be kickstarting early in 2023, and I hope that you follow us there. And yeah, I will see you Starside.